In this video, we're going to try our hand at making an almond wine. Ever noticed on YouTube that there are hardly any, if any, YouTube videos are showing you how to use a nut to make a wine? Well, we're going to try and find out why that is. If there's a problem, we're going to see what the problem is. If there's a solution to that problem, we're going to see what that solution is as well. Now then, to make our almond wine, we will be using the following. We're going to be using 1 cup of almonds, unsalted, basically the kind you find over in the bakery section with the spices and all that other good stuff. Whether they're whole, chopped, sliced, that's entirely up to you. We're going to be using 1 pound, or in this case, 15 ounces of golden raisins. That's sultanas for some of you guys. They don't have 1 pound packages anymore, so this is as close as I can get. We're going to be using 5 cups of sugar. We're going to be using the juice and zest of 2 lemons. We're going to be using a bit of homemade yeast nutrient. If you don't have any, you can use the store-bought kind. If you don't have that, you can always watch my video on homemade yeast nutrients. This time around, I'm going to be using Red Star Premier Blanc wine yeast. It's an arbitrary decision. I decided to go for the higher alcohol content that this variant provides. Again, you can use whatever you got, and if you don't have wine yeast, the old standby, Plan B, still works. I'm going to be using 2 straining bags, 1 for the nuts and 1 for the raisins. I will need 1 gallon of water. That might be increased to 1 gallon and 1 cup of water. We'll see how that goes. We'll need a wide mouth fermenter because we're going to be using straining bags. We're going to need something that's got a wide opening so we can get our bags down in there. Now this one is optional, but if you want to use pectin enzyme with this one, please feel free. Later on, we're going to need a 1 gallon fermenter, jug, demijohn, carboy, take your pick. You'll need an airlock with stopper. Now if you don't have a fermenter that has a built-in airlock, then you'll need an airlock with stopper to use with that. It would be helpful if you had a hydrometer with testing tubes so you can determine your starting gravity and your ending gravity so that you can determine what your alcohol by volume is going to be at the very end. And of course, using your sanitizer of choice, make sure all of your equipment has been properly cleaned and sanitized. All of this equipment, of course, you can find with the Amazon links in the description section below the video. Also, this is what we're going to be using to make this wine. Now, the very first thing we need to do is that we need to finely chop up our almonds. Now, you can either do it like this, or if you've got one, you can do it like this. And now then, with our nuts finely chopped up, the next thing we want to do is to get them in a straining bag. With that having done, the next thing we want to do is we want to rough chop our raisins, aka sultanas, so we can get those in a straining bag. And we're going to leave this loosely tied because we need to add our zest. Now, by using your favorite means of zesting, go ahead and start zesting our lemons. And that's 2. And let's go ahead and get those in the straining bag. Now, I've taken the opportunity to pour off about 2 cups of water to make room for that possibly up to 5 cups of sugar we're going to be adding later on. And the next thing I want to do is I want to take our chopped up almonds and add enough water to cover. Don't need to be precise. Go ahead and put our lid back on. And we want to bring that up to a simmer. In our other pot, we want to go ahead and add in the remainder of our water. And put our lid back on. And we're going to bring that up to a boil. Well, now that our water has come to a boil, we can take our raisins and zest, add those to the mix, put our lid back on, and turn off the heat. In pot number 2, we are still going to let our chopped up almonds simmer for the next hour. Okay, it's been an hour. Let's take off our turn off the heat to our almond mixture and take the lid off of our raisin zest mixture. And I want to do this. One, I want to take 4 cups of our sugar. Let's go ahead and add that into this pot. Let's go ahead and incorporate that. And with respect to our almond mixture, there is, and you will not really be able to see it unless I get it in really, really close, there are a few droplets of oil floating on the water. And therein lies the problem that most people find when they're trying to make wine from nuts. Nuts have oil. But as you can see, the oil is floating on the top. So what we're going to do is this. I'm going to remove that bag. Let a little bit of a drain off here. And what we really want to do, let's squeeze out a little bit. We are done with that. And with respect to the oil floating on the top, what we're going to do is this. We're going to let this cool down. Let a bit more of that oil rise to the top. And then before we add it to our mixture, we're going to siphon beneath the layer of oil the liquid to get that into our pot. So we're just going to let this cool down, which is the same thing we're going to end up doing with our raisin mixture. Go ahead and put the lid back on. It's still fairly hot. So we're going to let this cool down for the next several hours. Basically overnight, because it is kind of late. And then we'll pick this up in the morning. All right. Getting back to the problem at hand. We need to figure a way of removing the oil that's on the surface layer of our almond water. And we do know that if you try and skim it off, that really isn't going to work. So there's got to be another way of doing it. And I'm thinking Perhaps an easier way of doing it would be to siphon off everything below the oil layer. It's not actually a whole layer. It's like small oil droplets floating on top of the water. So what I've decided to try and do is that I'm going to siphon this, right? I'm going to use my auto siphon and siphon below that layer. And I'm going to, while I'm at it, run it through a strainer and then collect the results of my effort. And if I can do this with one hand, all right, let's tilt it. Let's insert it. And I've got to get the pump action started while keeping this at an angle, which ain't easy. If I had an assistant, it would be. So let's see. Just want to get it started without making a huge mess. Actually, I think what I'm going to end up probably doing is foregoing the strainer for now. And let's just go ahead and get a hose inserted. Let's do it this way. Give us a little bit more control. And still got the same problem, but at least I've got a hand now. Let's go ahead and carefully begin pumping action. All right, got that started. Let's elevate our mixture a bit. Let gravity do the work for us. And let's slow it down a bit. And let's just stop it there. All right. With that having been done, again, without making a mess, let's go ahead and finish the process of getting our cup filled. And let's get this out of the way before it creates a mess. All right. So I've left most of the oil in the pan, hot, and in the cup. Have a quick look-see. Okay. Think that went pretty well. So if I can get a picture of that. We're going to go ahead and strain our juice, and we're going to go ahead and add that to our raisins. Now, in all honesty, let's see if I can get a picture of this. The raisins themselves, I mean, after that steeping in hot water, I mean, they did release a little bit of their own oils as well. So it's not a perfect world no matter what. You're going to get what you're going to get. So it's not like you're adding more oil than what was already there. So we're going to go ahead and strain this. Actually, going to pour it over the raisin bag. Not that it really matters. Okay, there's a little bit more the almond that's in that mixture. We'll go ahead and put my cover back on this one. Now to save a little bit of time, I've already transferred our sweetened almond juice water into the fermenter. And I've left the straining bag behind. We're going to add that later, but right now we want to bring our level up to 1 gallon. Which is about right there for me. And with that having been done, with a freshly sanitized spoon, take the opportunity. Let's go ahead and give that a good vigorous stir. And we now want to take our straining bag and go ahead and add that to a fermenter. Any remaining wine to be, go ahead and add that in. Now, if you are using a pectin enzyme, now would be the time to use it. Simply follow the instructions from your manufacturer and use it accordingly. If you're not, you can go ahead and press on. But for the moment, I'm just going to put a cover on mine while I get ready for the next step. Let's go ahead and juice our lemons and add those to the mix. Now would be a very good time to take our hydrometer reading, and my reading came in at 1.102. I don't think there's going to be any need to add any additional sugar. It looks like the 4 cups of sugar we added is going to be spot on for me. Now is the time where I want to go ahead and add in our homemade yeast nutrient. I want to give that a good vigorous stir. And following that, we want to go ahead and add our 1/4 teaspoon of yeast. However you want to add it is entirely up to you. If you want to bloom your yeast, feel free. Want to add more yeast, feel free. That's all I'm going to do. Put my cap back on. It is now time to label our creation. We are making almond wine. We started it on this date, and our original gravity reading was 1.102. Now then, once a day for the next 3 days, we want to go ahead and give our musk a very vigorous stir. Help incorporate some oxygen into the musk and help out the yeast a bit. After that, you can pretty much just leave it alone. We're going to let this sit for a total of 5 or 6 days. There's no hard, fast number on it. And let it go through primary fermentation, after which we are going to rack it into our carboy for secondary. And since we have slightly more than 1 gallon, when we do begin the process of racking this into secondary, we want to make sure that we rack everything under the top layer, about a good, 1/4 inch, to make sure that we don't bring in any oils that might have survived the racking into the primary fermenter in the first place. That'll help cut down on the oils that you have a problem with when you're using nuts with wine. And now we'll see this wine again, probably in another 1 year's time, unless something goes wrong, in which case I'll do a video on it. But for the time being, that's that. Okay, it's now been 12 months. It's now time to see if this was ready. All right, a couple of notes. DIY Fermentation Almond Wine, born 1/19/2022. ABV came in at a rather respectable 14.7%, and it's been pasteurized. Apart from that, the wine is clear. 97% clear. Okay, there's a slight bit of haze in it, but there's no sediment on the bottom. It's been back sweetened, and it was pasteurized some months ago. So the last time I had a chance to actually wet my tongue with it, and that's basically what I do when I back sweeten, is just wet my tongue, has been some time ago, so I really don't know what this tastes like anymore. So without further ado, let's go ahead and crack this open. Oh, I will say this while I'm not saying things. The biggest problem that I had originally in the making of this wine, in the first part of the video, was that the almonds produced a lot of oil, and that was something that I thought that might be a problem all the way down the line. But by the time of the second racking, the oil pretty much it was gone. Just basically making sure that I was racking beneath whatever oil layer was there. After that second time, that was it. So no, there's no oil floating on the surface. Go ahead and pour a glass real quick. There's no oil floating on the surface, so apparently the oil kind of like resolved itself. It'll help from careful racking. Whether or not I want to try this with some other kind of nut, I don't know. Maybe in the future I might give it a shot. Yes, you can smell the alcohol. You know what it smells like? If you inhale deeply enough, it almost smells like a rubbing alcohol, just a tiny little bit. Seriously. Beyond that, you're really not smelling anything else on the nose. I mean, it doesn't really have any almond type flavor to it or almond type smell to it. Whether or not it's got any almond flavor, I guess we're about to find this out. So what does it taste like? Hey, generally almonds don't really have a really strong flavor to it, but in the wine, it seems to have developed a little bit more. You can actually taste the almonds a bit more. I think I like the fact that when I back sweetened it, I made it sweet, but I think this would work either sweet or semi-dry. Of course, that on my channel with all my wines, I usually let everything go dry and then back sweeten it later to my taste. So that's how I do things. I've noticed that most of my tastings for that 1 year period a year ago, it seems like I'm still just overdoing it just a tad on the acidity, which comes through whatever it was that I used in the original making of the video. And I think since I've got it up and running, doing a side here, what did I use? There's that lemon. So my guess is half of the amount of lemon that I originally used is probably just right for this particular wine. Oh, 2 lemons. Wow, I used a lot of lemons. Used a lot of lemons. Half of the amount of lemon, I think, is probably a good thing. Maybe 1 lemon instead of 2. So far, that's the only thing I can see that I would probably change. Yeah, tone down the citrus notes just a bit to accentuate more of the almond flavor. And this wine will be probably on point. Yeah, this one would be on point. I still have 4 remaining bottles of this. Most definitely, I'll be grabbing those in a relatively short period of time, and just having something that's light. It's got a little kick to it. 14.70%. It's got a little kick to it. Yeah, this is not bad. Yeah, reduce the amount of lemon and basically bottle it, label it, hand it to a friend, because this is something you can actually give to a friend as, I guess, a representative sample of your level of winemaking. But basically, that's my take on the almond wine. It turned out better than I thought it did as an experiment using nuts, or rather almonds. Will I make this again? Probably. Will I try it with some other kind of nut? Walnut, perhaps. Now that I know that the the oil situation can pretty much resolve itself. Peanuts. It's worth a shot. Maybe a later video. So there is my take on making an almond wine. That's actually pretty decent. Yep. Tone down the acidity, 1 lemon instead of 2. And probably, did I or did I not? I did not. Scroll through my list of ingredients here. It does not appear as if I used, nope, did not use any tannin, which in my case would be simply boil a quarter of a cup of water, drop a tea bag in it, let it seep, and use that as my tannin substitute. I would probably add the tea bag for tannin, and I think that probably would work well. If I had to make a change, another change, probably instead of 2 lemons, again, I already suggested that we drop that down to 1, but maybe orange zest. Actually, that would probably make this great. Zest and orange. I'm going to make a suggestion in the ingredients section, which you can find in the description section of the video, making the modifications of 1 lemon and the zest of 1 orange. That will make this. So again, that's my take on almond wine. If you like what you see here, click on that subscribe button. Subscribe buttons, because there's a couple of them now. Better yet, hey, this stuff costs money. Become a member. Help pay for this stuff, because this channel needs the help. And or become a Patreon also to help this channel out. So until then, see you in the next video.